Five Thread podcast. My guest today is Hannah Cox, founder of the Better Business Network, a UK membership community for purpose-driven businesses, and Better Not Stop, a sustainability consultancy. In May 2024, she started running for the first time. 18 months later, she ran 100 marathons across 4,000 kilometres of India, raising over 106,000 for climate and social justice causes, all while managing an autoimmune disease. She's back in the UK now, rebuilding the Better Business Network into what she believes can become the largest community of purpose-driven businesses in the country. It was a brilliant conversation with Hannah and one that I absolutely loved. We started off by talking about the Better Business Network and then got into the details of her run across India. I loved it because Hannah is so human. She tells us the highs, but also the lows of that journey. It's a fascinating conversation and one that I know you're going to enjoy. Well, welcome to Five Thread Podcast, and I am super excited to have Hannah Cox with me today. As I do with all my guests, Hannah, I asked you to send me an introduction, and I was like, this is a paragraph. Like, I feel like the entire episode could be an introduction to your amazing work and like some of the crazy stuff that you do. And I was like, we need to spend longer than a paragraph on this introduction. So, I mean, where do we start? Better Business Network. Tell me about it, first of all.
So the Better Business Network is a nationwide membership organisation for people, individuals and businesses who care about people and the planet, who just want to find their community, their support system, and be signposted to other people doing awesome stuff. I think that's a fair way to put what we do. The succinct.
I was like, I love how succinct you're being, but I was like, and so you founded this was your idea. Like, how did all this come about?
Yeah, so I started a sustainability, I called it a sustainable impact agency, which was basically a made up term because I wasn't quite a sustainability consultancy, like a corporate kind of business. We were just a business that wanted to help businesses implement strategies and frameworks to help them not only be commercially successful, but also in a sustainable way, but also like work in the interest of people and the planet. So that agency started helping businesses with their B Corp certification and also led into helping businesses implement different sustainability frameworks that work for them. But when I started the agency, I was like, right, I need to start doing some business networking. I need to meet other people that align with my values. It was my, starting, I'd had businesses before, but I hadn't had businesses in this space before. So I didn't have a very big network. And I just could not find a business network that fit with that narrative. I attended a few like kind of local regional events, chamber events and FSB and things like that. And I just couldn't find my people. So I did a post on LinkedIn. That's kind of how the Better Business Network started, like nearly, 6 years ago. And since then it's kind of grown from what started off maybe with like a few Manchester business owners to over 450 members now, all around the UK. We do monthly regional events in 6 cities, which will be 10 cities by the end of the year. We have an annual flagship conference. We have an online community platform for those members that might not be based where we have a regular networking event, but they want to keep in touch with members. And we have online events for them to attend. And it basically has 3 pillars. Community, which is how do we help you get the support system you need around you to, have to feel like you're not on your own and trying to create a great business. Continuous growth. So how do we help you both internally grow through training and development, but like externally grow through business development? And then lastly, collective action. How do we, as a group of individuals and business owners, work together to push for better business? So those are the 3 pillars. They've always kind of been there and they've kind of evolved over the years in how we support in that way. But I feel like we are 100% where we need to be. We've kind of got our structure now, we've got our gang, and we're just looking to meet new people that want to get involved.
And I can't stress how groundbreaking and special this is. Like, and that's why I was like, I can't just have one paragraph to introduce you, because I think what you've created is just phenomenal. I saw you last week at one of the networking events, and it has been the first time I've gone somewhere and actually it's just like like you say, like it's like you found your crowd. People were just so unbelievably lovely and generous, no agenda. And it was people who wanted to do business better, all in the same place, all brought together with the same purpose. And you've done that, Hannah. Like that wouldn't exist without you. And I just think it's absolutely brilliant. And, you know, one of the things I was reading on your LinkedIn is 99.9% of businesses are SMEs. Many of them don't have the tools or the knowledge to be able to feel supported in making that change. And am I right in thinking a lot of the businesses who are part of Better Business are SMEs? You know, you're bringing in these individuals who are all, a lot of the time, run on a lot of passion, a lot of purpose, but are small SMEs kind of working a lot of the time independently, and you're kind of bringing them all together to create this powerhouse of a cohort, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's just, like you said, it's about people coming in with no agenda and just like meeting other nice people. So we started, and it definitely started off as a sort of freelancer, small business owners, solo entrepreneurs, people with no employees or maybe just one or two employees. We really felt that we looked after those group of people when we started the network. But since we've grown, we've also attracted larger businesses who are looking for that training and development for their teams, or looking to connect with other better businesses. And, you know, we have large businesses in the network like Faith in Nature, who many of your listeners will have heard of, Tony's Chocolonely, large law firms. And that's because they're recognizing the importance of using their tools and expertise to support smaller business owners, but also that they're wanting that community aspect as well, which they might have a certification that shows that they are a purpose-driven business, but they don't have access to that community on a regular basis. So we definitely started kind of supporting the smaller businesses, but also after a few years, we had quite a few non-profits and charities approach us. We were a bit like, well, you're not a business, you can't be in the network. But then actually then we had businesses who were like, we want to connect with non-profits and charities, but we don't know what's in our local area. So we've also become this kind of bridge as well for bringing in people in the non-profit and charity sector with connecting with businesses. And I think, like you said, the nice thing about it is because people aren't coming in with like business cards or a sales agenda, and they're just connecting on the fact of, you know, liking each other and getting on, those kind of having that kind of value led means more interesting conversations are happening, and people are ending up speaking to somebody that they would never have been put in front of otherwise because they're in a completely different industry or completely different sector, but maybe they've come up with a challenge that someone in a different industry or sector could absolutely help with because they're just approaching it from a different way. And I found those are the sorts of conversations that make the network useful, because actually it's almost the unexpected people that you meet are the ones that help you with like solutions and things like that in your own business.
100%. Like I said, I was at one of these events last week, and already I've had like a couple of coffees with people who I've never have kind of been on my radar, and you just click. It's like that shortcut to be able to do great work because you are both aligned, you know, and I think there's a certain magic to that. I kind of jumped straight in terms of like the business side of it, but also, as well as doing all of this, Hannah, you just decided to do 100 marathons and run across India. Yes. And I just feel... I
like the way you said it flippantly, but it also like was that flippant. Well, we're recording this 2 days before my official 2-year running anniversary. So, which is weird because I also feel like I've closed the chapter on my running life. But I think, you know, despite running the network and despite having my agency and, you know, my whole real career and work being around how do we come together, mass participation to push for change, I was getting frustrated with the way of the world, where we were at, how quickly the network was growing, how much impact I felt we were making. I started to lean from wanting to do less agency work to more on the network, because I thought, you know, I can work with 10 businesses a year in the agency, but if I can grow the network, we can be helping hundreds, if not thousands of businesses do better. So already 2 years ago, I was kind of starting to shift from this, maybe I want to focus more of my time on the network and it's less of a side hustle and more of like what I'm actually doing all the time. And then the collective action of Project Salt Run, which was 100 marathons in 100 days across India, was what's a sort of thing that what's a collective action we can all kind of hang our hats on. And at the time, the network had people who are running campaigns approaching us, asking them to support the campaigns like the Real Living Wage and the Better Business Act. And we will always support other people doing incredible campaigns. But we hadn't actually done any particular like campaign as an organisation ourselves. We definitely highlighted members who'd done great stuff through our Better Business Pioneer annual campaign. But it resonated a lot with me. My dad's from India. It was along something called the Inland Customs Line, which was created by the East India Company back in the 19th century, which really represents everything against what the network is about, which is businesses taking more than they need, not considering people and the planet while doing so. So it felt like there was a story to tell there as well. And like you said, I wasn't a runner. I was a very unfit 40-year-old. And, I just thought, sometimes it's, I would sometimes get pushback. Oh, it's easy for you to say, it's, do this, do that, check your privilege. And I thought, right, well, this is going to be something really, really difficult for me to do because I've got absolutely no idea what I'm doing. But perhaps doing something that's physically difficult will show people that, like, we need to bring these conversations to the forefront. And thanks to a lot of people, hundreds, thousands of people supporting that campaign, we were able to not only run across India, we were able to raise over £100,000 for charity at the same time. So that was incredible.
And you're incredible, Hannah, because most people would have maybe had an idea like that and then just thought, I'll park this for a while. Maybe I'll stick my toe and do a couple of runs and then just be like, maybe I've overstretched. But you were like, no, I mean, it's the sheer determination and resilience to do that, I think, is phenomenal. And I was checking out your LinkedIn and you are an endurance athlete. Now, 2 years ago, for somebody who had never run, I think it really shows the art of what's possible. And I think that's why I'm just really keen and curious and such a fan of your work, because almost you can prove, you can prove the impossible. Like if somebody had said to you years ago that you'd be doing this, you probably would have laughed at them and said, actually, there's no way. And how has that kind of journey been in terms of what were the biggest lessons that you've learned? What took it from the idea to actual action? What kind of kept you going with it?
Well, I think, often anyone that works in, wanting to have a better business from the commercial capitalist, land, people see it as like, oh, it's a nice to have, or it's like pie in the sky, or, it's easy to say, but not to do. And I just thought, you know what, I'll always be proving it to myself. I always, it was like, if I can believe that I can do something literally without the realm, beyond the realms of possibility for me. Now, for context, Joe, I didn't even know if anyone had physically done 100 marathons in 100 days when I started saying it. I had a series of, I would say, serendipitous events, the universe telling me that this was something I was going to do over the course of a Thursday evening to the Monday morning. And as a result of that, and if you've listened to me talk about Project Salt Run before, you'll know this story, but essentially I had been obsessed with the Inland Customs Line for about 10 years. I'd found it a really fascinating story. The fact that the East India Company had created a 4,000 kilometre long hedge through that continent, through that country, to enforce a salt and land tax. It led to the death of millions of Indians. It's a horrible story, but also not talked about anywhere, disputed whether it even was true. There's a book called The Great Hedge of India on it. And, there's evidence in the British Library and in the Royal Geographical Society that this inland customs line did exist. But it's just not talked about. But it's such a representation of kind of everything that's wrong with capitalism, that you can take without considering. And as long as you're making money and making a profit, you're not doing anything wrong as a business. Now, it's an extreme example of that. And actually, when I read the story, I was more interested in the fact that kind of no one was talking about it, and it was just this huge kind of, could it be an overland journey and adventure through the country that my dad was born. It wasn't until a friend suggested to me 2 years ago that I should run it. And I had been campaigning for a few years about the Better Business Act, and he had become an ultra runner recently, and I did need a new adventure, and I was feeling pretty powerless as an individual. And as much as it's wonderful to hear, people like you say, oh, the network already had hundreds of members at the moment, but on a day-to-day basis, I didn't feel like I was making the difference that I could be. And I was hearing it from other members of the network as well, and other friends. We're constantly bombarded with bad news, and it sometimes can feel like, what can I do to make the world a better place? So it was almost a challenge. It was a challenge of what I had been preaching for the last few years, which was individuals can make a difference. And I was like, right, well, I need to kind of put my money where my mouth is, really. The 100 marathons in 100 days was, the inland custom line was 4,000 kilometres. If you carried on a little bit, you got to Kolkata, which is where my dad was born. If you carried on a little bit more, you got to the Bengal border. It roughly made 100 marathons in 100 days. I thought that sounded good. Like I said, I actually Googled posts saying I was doing it. Has anyone done that before? And bizarrely, a woman from Derbyshire, so right down the road from me, had done it on I think mostly on a treadmill, which sounds horrendous. And so I thought, right, well, it's physically possible. It's going to be a mental toughness and resilience kind of thing, just as much as a physical thing. And, any business owner you've ever met has got that mental toughness and resilience, because we're all kind of climbing an uphill battle running a business. And yeah, I felt, for me, doing something that was so outside my comfort zone and going to be so difficult for me would build my own confidence in continuing to work in a job which sometimes can feel like we're not making a difference because we're just one person.
And I think, Hannah, so many people will resonate with your reasoning for doing this. That's sometimes, and especially if you are run by purpose and, within the sustainability world, it can seem very bleak at times. And wanting to feel empowered and make that personal change and difference, I think, is absolutely massive. And I think a lot of people will really kind of, as I say, empathize with it. But that's a big step from feeling like that to doing. And I'm sure you have people kind of maybe questioning your motivations, or kind of saying, is it possible? How did you, I'm kind of keen to dig into that resilience. I know, like you said, there's a lot of small business owners who just sheer existing as an SMA takes resilience. But on the days where you were running and it was hard, and, did you ever feel like giving up?
Oh, yes, loads. So I think, well, there's a few aspects to this, right? I think the thing that is most difficult about being a purpose-driven business owner is you do not have a clear objective laid out for you in the same way that a capitalist business owner does. If you're somebody like Donald Trump, for example, your two main objectives are money and power. Very easy to aim towards. Is this going to give me more money? Is this going to give me more power? When you're a purpose-driven business owner or individual, it's more nuanced. Yes, you want to make money to live. Yes, you want to have an influence with what you do, but also you want to do it in a way that is a positive impact on the world. And that might mean different things for you, because your focus might be your family or regionally or climate. There's so many different solutions to a lot of the problems we have. And because of that, we get diluted, and there's so many different things we want to be looking at, and it can be really overwhelming. And it's almost by caring about more than one thing, it makes it even harder to achieve any of them. So there's that aspect of it. But also, I thought, this is what I've been saying that I care about and what's important for the last few years. Before we even left for India, we had an issue happen in the business, and I had one person giving me the piece of advice: you need to stay, we need to sort this, this needs to be dealt with, you're going to have to cancel Project Salt Run. And then, be to make sure BBN still exists. And then I had the other person saying, you need to do India. So many people have already invested in it. You can't turn your back on it now. But to do that, you're going to have to let go of BBN. So I was put in this position, literally, I would say about a week before I left. Do I let go of Project Salt Run or do I let go of BBN? And it made sense on both counts. There were pros and cons. There was no pro to trying to do both. The issue I had was most of the, at that point, Project Salt Run had raised tens of thousands in money from individuals and businesses who, were told very clearly that we're just trying to make this happen, but if we don't hit the figures, we're not going to be able to do it. So, but yet I knew there was a lot of people that I knew that had invested in trying to make Project Salt Run happen. And if I said, oh, it's not happening now, I'd lose the confidence of them because I wouldn't have even stepped on the plane to do that first run to make it possible. And then on the other side, I also knew that for my business to survive in the way that I needed it to, me running across a country on the other side of the world was not going to help with that at all. I really didn't know what to do. I did feel like giving up, but through sheer determinedness, I was like, we just need to work out a way to make this work. So unlike potentially other athletes who might go out and do a thing like Project Salt Run and have a big team behind them and not have any other things to worry about while they're running, just turning up and running, I was running on a daily basis, worried about how am I going to pay the bills at home? How am I going to keep the network running? How am I going to make sure the members that are already part of BBN feeling that they're looked after and cared for when they haven't got the support around them that they should be having? It was really difficult. And to say, was there a moment that I felt like giving up? On a daily basis, I felt like giving up, but on a daily basis, I knew that wasn't an option. So I would cry most days. There would be some days where I couldn't bear to open my laptop because I just knew that there was like overdue bills or somebody asking me to do something I didn't have time for, or I had emails to send to sponsors, and it was incredibly stressful. But at the same time, I was like, if we do not prove that we can do this, then what am I going back to? I was like, I don't know what I would go back to if I don't put everything I can into this. But it was not easy, both like from a financial point of view, from a physical point of view, from an operational point of view. I think there was a lot going on behind the scenes that wasn't on social media about how difficult it was, especially with a small team, but also with a small business that was struggling while I was running. But by stopping running, it wasn't going to stop that. So it was just kind of going for it and believing that this will, when you get back, you'll be able to kind of like focus and make the changes that the business needs, which has happened. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing was hard work, all of it.
I just want to thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability in sharing that, because I think, from social media, you could obviously see it was difficult in terms of the physical effort and the endurance. But like you say, I don't think a lot of people knew what was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they did. And in fact, I mean, I briefly mentioned it in a LinkedIn post the other day. I'm defending a small claims that came against me about a month before I went out as well. So yeah, there was lots going on really. And one, we didn't really want to take away from the mission of what we were trying to do and kind of give too much airtime to like negative stories. And it was suggested to us, like, people want to see the crying, people want to see the drama. But you have to remember, like, we're 4 human beings traveling together in each other's pockets. I've mentioned this before, but Natalie, Alex and Joelle were working from the minute they woke up till the minute they went to bed every day, as well as me. And, it was a pressure cooker of difficulty. And actually, would that have been good for us as a team if we had like shared some of those moments online socially? No, it wouldn't have. And it's easier to talk about afterwards. But things like this are hard. It might have come off a little bit how hard it was on socials, but it was definitely much harder while we were achieving it. And I think coming back to the UK and jumping straight back into work when I got back literally the next day, and it's been 2 months since I got 3 months since I got back now, just it doesn't feel real. The whole thing feels like a bit of a fever dream, and I think it will take a while to decompress and navigate all the feelings of doing something like that over the next few years, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I was going to say, how has that adjustment been? Like, I read your LinkedIn post. I don't know whether it was from today, but you said, I'm tired. And you were like, I'm going to take a bit of a break. I'm tired. And I was like, oh, I love this woman. Like, of course you're tired. Like, take a break. But have you found it kind of coming back? Because a lot of people, when they do something like that, actually, when they come back, they can find it quite difficult to kind of readjust to normal life again, because it's such a exposing and vulnerable and a huge thing to do. How have you found it?
Well, again, I had a call with somebody earlier today, and he said, oh, I assumed you'd take a couple of months off afterwards and just like have a relax. And again, it goes back to like, well, yeah, I mean, if I financially could have taken a couple of months off, I of course would have taken a couple of months off afterwards. The reality is I took about a week off, but still kind of beavering behind the scenes. And then I was straight back into work because, we had a busy platform of hundreds of businesses that needed looking after. And, I didn't have the ability to take more time off and not do my job, basically. I have been able to, like I said in my LinkedIn post, I am tired. I came back, we continued with the fundraising efforts right up until London Marathon at the end of April. And, even the fact that we had like an incredible £10,000 donation from a business like just last week, and I didn't even know it had happened. I don't get the notifications from GiveStar to my email. I had one of the charities message me and say, oh, great that we've hit 6 figures. And I thought, when? And then I checked and it happened like 2 days before, because it's just been so busy. There's been the pressure of not hitting the fundraising target that I had planned for, which was 1 million, which again was a crazy target. And I wonder if my fundraising target had been 100K, maybe we would have hit that while we were out there, because people would have felt that we were closer, more likely to get to it than they thought we were when we were kind of on those lower numbers. And then maybe I wouldn't have put that additional pressure on myself when I came back to the UK to do another 2 marathons, and not only the training that's involved with that, but also kind of the promotion and the content creation and the reaching out to people that was needed for that to happen. But yeah, like I said, I'm tired. I want to like have a bit of a break. And I find being on so much on social media very exhausting. I was very lucky that Natalie, who was out with me for Project Salt One's incredible at socials, and actually when I was running, the majority of social media I could kind of ignore because Natalie was managing it. She was getting back to people. She was reading messages. So I felt that, if I had a couple of days of not looking online, that was okay because somebody else was. I had never really been on Instagram before Project Salt One. I kind of started the Instagram to start that, and I felt like managing a few different social channels has been quite difficult. But again, it just leans into what you were saying, like being a small business owner is difficult and people have got loads of hats on, and it more than ever reminds me like why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I'm trying to create an ecosystem and a support system for people so that we aren't getting burnt out trying to do everything. And I can only lead by example there. So I've done my big run, I've done my collective action piece. I'm now going to kind of slow it down a bit for the summer.
And I think it's important that people see that, that I don't want to say this the wrong way, but that you're not superhuman, because sometimes we can look up to people and be like, oh my goodness, if they can do it, then why can't I? And to actually hear, do you know what, it's tired and I just do want a break is actually really refreshing, because sometimes we don't hear that enough. And I know since you've got back, you've made some changes to the Better Business Network way of joining, and you've had some incredible success. I was reading since April it's grown by 35%. I wonder whether you could kind of talk a bit more about that, and also how people could join. And did those changes come from doing the run, or were those kind of in your mind before?
I think, before we came away, the network was small, making money, it had been kind of supported by profits and Better Not Stop for a few years, but it had got to the point where it was kind of quite sustainable, but with a small team managing it, but it wasn't growing fast enough as far as I was concerned to have the impact I knew it could potentially have. And ultimately, there was two things. I thought the more members we have, the easier it is for us to then provide training and development and support to those members. I mean, one of the kind of examples of that is we provide free carbon literacy training to members. Now, if because we've got lots of members paying a membership fee, we can deliver that training for free. But if it was a small business, we wouldn't be able to do that, and we'd have to charge thousands of pounds. So it was all for me about delivering training and development and support to businesses that they might otherwise have to pay thousands of pounds for, but they couldn't afford to in like an affordable way. There were two things I was noticing when I was running the challenges I was trying to solve for our members, which was one, for those that money is a financial barrier, what can we do? Difficult. I wanted to not let finances be a barrier to people accessing the resources that they wanted and the support. How do we create a big enough community for those businesses to connect with each other? And it just made sense to offer a free business model, which brings in those members, so that we've got a larger membership. And it's also brought in more paid members as well. We've had lots of people joining the community tier of the membership. But then also having a slightly higher tier called the growth membership, where those businesses who can invest in spending more money on support and business development opportunities, which the network offers, they can. So it just almost was, when we came up with it, we were like, this is the obvious thing to do. The more members we have, the more members there are that can do business with each other. And the more active people are, the more likely they are to do business with us. So we need to offer them those opportunities. It wasn't an easy decision to make, but it was definitely it felt like we needed a shake up and we needed a change, because we want to grow the membership to something that can really make a difference in the UK. And I think to be able to do that, we needed to get the numbers in and kind of show that value that way.
You've done that to grow the network, but was that a easy decision in the fact that you were very clear on, yes, this is going to work and this is how we're going to do it? Or was that something where actually through doing that run, you were like, this has taken time and I think this is the right way forward now?
I think I was recognising it's the right way forward, but yet again, it was like another stupid decision, because it was like, we are literally turning around to people and say, you're paying, we were turning around to some people saying, thanks for paying us $3,000 a year, but we don't actually want that anymore. In fact, it's impossible for you to pay us that much. The most you can pay us is £500 a year, but you might not even find that useful. So you might only want to pay us £95, but you might only want to pay us nothing. And the transition, again, it's like moving in a kind of existing ship is so much harder. It's much harder to make business decisions when the business already exists, but we just knew it was the right decision. Like, for the long-term North Star goal of what we're trying to achieve, which was create change in the UK on how businesses are run, that was the solution. It was like, in the same way, I guess, a little bit like Project Salt Run, I went from, this is such a crazy idea, to actually, this is probably what we need to be doing. It was similar for the network. From a financial perspective, hopefully long term, it will support us. It's much easier to convert three £95 a year members than one £300 a year member. We've seen that because we're getting more £95 a year members joining. But we're also kind of adjusting a business model that did have some kind of heavy hitter supporting us a lot more than they will going forward. We've got this new kind of corporate partnerships that we've got coming out in June for the launch. We're launching them during London Climate Action Week, of almost solution partners who are larger businesses who see the benefit of supporting the network because either they believe in the mission, or it hits their collective action goals as a B Corp, or we are exactly their audience. So this is like a customer acquisition idea for them. There's kind of a few different ways in which the corporate partners are coming in. And But as anyone who is listening, who is a business owner, there is very different from selling a product that's £95 to somebody than selling a kind of corporate partnership in the tens of £1,000s. It's not something you just ring up and say, can you give us some money? And someone just says yes. It's, you know, if you're talking to a business about numbers that high, you're probably talking to 2 or 3 different people in the business, and it needs to go through compliance, and it needs to go through a senior leadership team meeting and be checked against a budget. So it's not decisions that are going to be quick. I've only been back a few months. We've only come up with the business model like a month in. We're now having those conversations. So it's a slower process, but it feels much more authentic. It feels much more about what we represent as an organisation, and it feels more comfortable as a sales process for me, because I feel that people are paying what they can when they can and getting the value from the network. And part of that is being engaged in the network. And you've seen it, Joe, like people are just more engaged because they're like, well, there's all these new people coming in. I feel like we've just achieved something as an organisation, you know, because Project Salt One was all of us doing it together. You know, I was the one doing the running, but that running was fueled by people in the network still supporting the network while I was away, both financially, also making donations, amplifying Project Salt Run. So I feel like totally behind the idea now. Whereas before, I knew it was a good idea, knew we were doing good. I just couldn't quite work out how we weren't accelerating faster than I felt that we could. And now I feel it makes more sense.
Mm. And I think what you're kind of showing people is, you know, you can do hard things. You can also pivot. You know, if you don't feel you're on the right path, you can pivot. I'm curious to kind of know, you know, what have you learned from all of this?
Well, a couple of things. One is a lot of the rules that we place upon ourselves are self-imposed. So often when I'm telling myself, oh, I can't do something, I have to almost like check myself and be like, what's the evidence that you can't do that? Have you even tried to do that? You know, Project Salt One being a prime example. Like, I tried, and I actually weirdly could run a 100 marathon distance in 100 days across the country. And it has made me think, well, what else could I do if I just believed that I could do that? It's obviously an element there of privilege. I was able to do that because I did have the network I had, which helped with those connections, and I'm physically able. And unlike a lot of people my age, you know, I'm 42 now, I don't have children that I'm looking after. So when I was deciding to train 6-7 days a week, it wasn't that suddenly my partner had more parental responsibilities or my children didn't have time with me. You know, just from the stage I was in my life, I had the privilege to be able to dedicate myself in that way. So obviously I'm understanding of that. It's also made me realise that there's this Dita Von Teese quote, which is like, you can be the juiciest, ripest peach in the bunch, and sometimes people just don't like peaches. And that has been a very clear lesson that I've learned from doing Project Salt One and the Better Business Network, because there's always going to be people that aren't happy with what you're doing. They're going to either tell you they're not happy, or you're going to feel that they're not happy. You're going to get that energy from them when you meet them. You know, I've made changes in the network, and I've had some members, you know, be annoyed and frustrated because they're like, well, I've been paying, you know, this much money, and now the value of that is changed. I'm like, but you're still getting the same. I don't understand. And then you just think, well, I can't do anything right for this person. Like, you know, firstly, they're almost getting annoyed with me that I've made their experience cheaper because they weren't paying cheaper before. It's like, you know, even that sort of thing is like wild to me. Or I've had members reaching out saying, well, I'm not getting value from the network. And I'm like, okay, well, have you come to any of the networking events in the last 3 months? Have you posted on the community forum what you're doing? Have you put something in the newsletter, which you can still do for free, whatever level of membership you are, you know? And then they'll be like, no. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not your mum. But you get out what you put into these things. And then there's also been people with Project Salt Run who didn't think we were going to do it, who have said we were just doing it for attention, or we were doing it to like look good. And I'm telling you, I don't know what you got off social media to think that was fun for me. I don't know what you got for me coming back and being in like a shed load of debt, and me like having loads of overdue bills and trying to work out my personal finances as a self-employed business owner, check my company's house. It's not like I went and I was making hundreds of thousands of pounds profit in my business the last 5 years. It's frustrating that people have that negative thoughts about you. And I have been surprised about people who I thought had my back when I went to India, who didn't support the cause when we were out there, haven't messaged us since being back. People I thought I was quite close to, but again, whatever. Like, you can't please everybody. So ultimately, what frees you in that is you just think, well, you know, sometimes it doesn't matter what you do, people are going to get annoyed with you, so you might as well just do what you think is the right thing. And I think that's what I've learned from this, is when I was trying to please too many people, I wasn't pleasing myself. And now, at least, if people aren't happy with what I'm doing, I'm at least happy with what I'm doing, and that's the most important thing.
And that we all need to live our life by that Dita Von Teese quote, I think.
I think so too. And it's about having the right people around you, right? When I was having those tough days in India, you know, it would take one voice note. There'd be, you know, those handful of people, most of them I've met through the Better Business Network, who I would voice note, say I'm having a tough time, and they would voice note me back, either saying they're having a tough time or telling me to like get myself together. You know, you'd be surprised about the amount of people that I was voice noting, but then they'd voice note me about like an issue they currently had in their business or something going on. And they're like, mate, I shouldn't really bother you with this. And I'm like, please bother me with this. I don't want to have to think about my problems. I want to talk about your problems. But it's again going back to that community part of the network. It's like, if you've got a support system around you and a community of people around you who know you and know your intentions are good and care about you, then it kind of doesn't matter what the rest of the outside world is thinking and saying about you. That's literally their thing. Like, it's a very difficult pill to swallow, that not everybody's going to like you, but unfortunately for me, not everybody's going to like me. And that's actually, I'm fine with that now. I don't think I was fine with that before.
And I imagine that's very freeing.
Yeah. Because it's just like, you know, I mean, I've had people turn around to me saying, oh, well, the only reason you think sustainability is a good idea is because that's what your business does. And I just think, fucking hell, you can't win. You literally cannot win. You know, oh, the only reason you think purpose-driven businesses should like connect with each other is because you make money from it. And I just think, so what do we do then? Just not have a business that has a purpose because therefore you're only making money? Like, I just don't get it. So I think that's another reason, Joe, as you said, you know, I'm tired of being on social media. I'm tired of me doing that to myself, like looking at other people, wondering what they're thinking of my posts, wondering what their comments are. Like, actually, I don't care. So I just want to step away from it all for a bit and just like focus on the work that I know is making a difference and helping the people I know are doing good work out there. And that's people that come to be events.
And I think there's that brilliant quote that Brené Brown says that I will completely screw up. But she talks about, you know, if you're the person in the arena, almost then you can have an opinion.
Yeah.
But, you know, the people who are criticizing you aren't the ones doing this run. They haven't run across India, which is 4,222 kilometers. And it's fine to sit at home and kind of through social media or whichever platform to sit and critique. And I just think, actually, you did it, Hannah. You know, you're the person who's done it. You're the person who has made the impossible possible. And you continue to do that every day by bringing these amazing purpose-driven businesses together. And I wonder whether you ever kind of realize the legacy of the actions that you're taking, you know, whether it's kind of sat with you as to how big some of this stuff is that you're doing.
But again, it just goes back to, it isn't possible without other people. None of it's possible without other people. So nothing I have done would have been possible without other people who, before, on those points where I didn't believe in myself, they believed in me. And whether that was when I was running or before I started running, there was a very small amount of people who believed that I could do it because I'd somehow convinced them. So when those moments where I wasn't sure, they were pushing me along, it would not have been, none of it would have been possible without other people. I've had people that I'm very close to say to me since I got back, I'm not joking. So if 5 people have said it to me, 50 have been thinking it, have said to my face, I didn't think you were going to do it. I thought you were mad. I was convinced you weren't going to do it. And I just felt like going, well, you didn't say that to my face before I went away, and you were really supportive, but they were honest enough to admit that afterwards, which is fine. But yeah, like you said, you've just got to step up. And was Project Salt One perfect? No. Did we make mistakes? Yes. Same with the Better Business Network. Do I turn up for work and I am the most productive, focused, mindful, present business owner? No. Like, I have bad days. I have bad days where I send the wrong email or forget to do something that's really important, or, like just mess something up. Like the day we met, God, like Bristol, I thought someone else had ordered catering and they hadn't. So therefore Bristol had no pastries on that day. The networking event in Brighton, that someone had put the wrong address on the event to the main bit, so people are turning up in the wrong place. And that's a business that's 5 years old. It's like sometimes mistakes happen, and it's like, if your intention is good and you're showing up, that's like you said, more than a lot of people are doing, and everyone deserves a bit of credit for that, which again is why the network exists. Like, if you're showing up with the intention to have a better business, you deserve to be surrounded by people who are supporting you in doing that. And you shouldn't have to. You can get on the free membership to do that. You can just turn up to the events and meet some people, and then meet up with them, networking outside and having coffees and stuff. But yeah, it's never an individual thing doing stuff like this. It's always a collective thing. And I'm just very lucky that now I get to do a job that brings those sorts of people together.
And we will put all the details about how you can join in the show notes. And I 100% encourage everybody to join. Because like I say, my own personal experience, it's actually been one of the nicest networking things I've ever been to. And I don't even want to call it a networking thing.
Oh, I know.
But it was just actually, it was meeting some of the nicest people that I think I've kind of ever met. I don't want to be like ever met, but like strangers who you can actually be like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a coffee. Like I had a coffee with Susie today. And it was just great. And I would never have met her had it not been, through that coffee morning. And I just think the investment is so low, and actually you make it so accessible. So this is like my call to action to everybody to come and join, because I think, like you say, it's power in numbers. Yeah. And just before we wrap up, a couple of things, some quick fire questions.
Okay, let's go.
For you. Yeah, I know. I was like, we'll try out this new format. Would you do Project Salt Run again?
No. If you want more context to that, I think if I did it again, I'd want to change all the mistakes we made the first time round, but actually you can't. So you've just got to accept all the kind of things you messed up. Would I do things differently now, knowing what I know? Yes, but can I? No. So I'm just going to have to live with the consequences of that. Did I learn from every single challenge and mistake I had on that trip? Oh my God, yes. And has it changed how I behave in the future? 100%. And I think that can only be for the better.
100%. Better Business Network, sum it up in 3 words.
I mean, that's easy. Community, collaboration, and action.
What makes you smile, especially now when you are tired?
If it's not chocolate, specifically Tony's Chocolonely dark chocolate, it's spending time with my nieces, my nephews, or my friends' kids. I think there's something about, especially as someone that doesn't have children, so probably, at the end of my work day, often I've got friends who are parents who are like, you just switch off because you have to, you're looking after your kids and everything. I think there is actually something very wonderful in being able to do that, being able to switch off from the stresses of work and just realize like how wonderful life is and how funny kids are. So yeah, I like to switch off by spending time with children and then realizing like it's not that deep. Let's have a good time now, and tomorrow's another day.
It's quite nice just to hang around with people who really do not care about what you do, and they're just like, do you want to watch CBeebies, or do you want to ride a bike? And you're like, yeah. You really don't, there's no agenda there.
You really get put in your place by kids, basically.
Yes, exactly. You're never cool for what you do, but you might be cool if you, could do a handstand or a headstand or something like that. New skill. And then just before we wrap up, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wish I had? I mean, I've got a whole 2 pages of questions here, Hannah, but I'm going to wrap it up now. So yeah, anything that I should have asked you that I haven't, or anything that you would like to share before we close?
I guess what I would share is, like, I'm not that special. I didn't come from a rich family. When I came up with the idea for Project Salt Run, I had no idea how we were going to fund it, how we were going to pay for it, how my business was going to survive. I didn't know if I could run further than 5 kilometers. But I really pushed myself hugely uncomfortably out of my wheelhouse and showed myself what was possible when I decide to believe in myself, and I publicly am accountable for that. And when I reach out and ask for help, and I just guess anyone listening to this, I would argue, you know, if you find that North Star focus of the thing that you think you can be part of the solution for, then just absolutely go for it, because you've got no idea what you can achieve if you just dedicate the time to doing something, if you really know what your why is. So just, you know, if you don't know what it is, try and figure it out. Open up the space in your life to figure that out, and you too can have run across the country.
What a brilliant note to end on, Hannah. I mean, I have to disagree, because I do think you are special. And I do think that for so many people, you are an example of what it means to be brilliantly human. You know, that you do these things and you do them with a level of honesty, but integrity and vulnerability that actually just makes us kind of go on this journey with you. So, I mean, amazing, like, to get to speak to you today. And also just thank you for bringing together this community of brilliant people, because when we do have days where it can feel a bit bleak, being able to know that there's other great people doing fabulous work who feel like you, but they're getting on with it, actually is so, like, heartening.